There is a library beyond all libraries, where the echo of every thought, every desire ever born beneath starlit skies is etched into the living breath of creation itself. The first stirrings of the Akashic records are felt not as a whisper in a scholar's hall, but as a pulse, an enigmatic vibration beneath the surface of your own awareness. From the depths of time, mystics and visionaries have described a presence, a vast archive woven not from paper and ink, but from the invisible currents binding the soul to the universe. The scent of possibility lingers here, where every choice, every fear, every longing folds into an intricate latticework, shimmering just beyond ordinary sight. What if the story of your life, its forgotten beginnings, its hidden turning points, its destiny still unfolding, was already written, not in the past tense, but in an ever-living tapestry? The Akashic records are not a myth spun from idle imagination. They are a living current, described in sacred texts, whispered about in ancient temples, and glimpsed by seekers standing at the threshold of reality itself. To approach them is to feel the air pull taut with mystery, to sense the world's ordinary fabric thinning, revealing the script behind phenomena. Akasha. The word itself is ancient, drawn from Sanskrit, meaning ether, space, sky, something deeper than air, more pure than light, more lasting than stone. In earliest traditions, Akasha was revered as the subtle thread from which existence itself is spun. Invisible, elusive, yet everything emerges from and returns into its fathomless embrace. It is the primal field, the canvas upon which stars are painted and thoughts are seeded. Imagine a memory so complete, so absolute, that even the fleeting glance exchanged between strangers, or the trembling hope beneath a prayer at midnight, is cherished and remembered. Within the Akasha, every vibration made by your spirit sends ripples, a pattern luminous and indelible across the expanse of the cosmic sea. Here, nothing is ever wasted, nor truly lost. Throughout ages, this concept re-emerged in forgotten cults, esoteric schools, and whispered tales, a book of life, and more. The Egyptians conceived a hall where deeds, weighed against the feather of Mayat, would determine the flight of a soul. Ancient Indian seers described the luminous matrix of Akasha, carrying the impressions, hopes, and lessons of all beings. The Bible, too, hints at a record, a book containing names and destinies, mysteries etched in divine vision. But the Akashic records are not simply an archive, far from a lifeless catalog. Those who draw near describe not reading dusty manuscripts, but entering a living presence, an ocean of memory that flows, grows, breathes, and transforms. It reveals itself as a library without walls, a cathedral in which thoughts flit and swirl like birds at dawn, each a doorway to another epoch, another self. In the hands of a true seeker, the Akashic records transform identity, pulling away veils, dissolving illusions. Have you ever felt déjà vu? A shiver of recognition, as if a forgotten memory resurfaced from some deeper source. What if such flashes were not random, but glimpses, sudden and fleeting, into your own story, written across lifetimes? The Akashic field contains not just one incarnation's journey, but the great arc, wounds, triumphs, and lessons waiting for remembrance. Why do some patterns repeat within families and across generations? What secret wisdom lingers in your fears, your dreams, your sense of déjà vu at crossroads in your life? The Akashic field holds the answers, if you learn how to listen. In this realm, categories blur, time folds in upon itself, past and future converse beneath the veil. Every possibility shimmers with equal potential. Mystics recount receiving knowledge not as sentences, but as floods of images, sensations, direct knowing. A symphony that does not rely on words, yet leaves an unshakable clarity in its wake. It is no accident that every spiritual tradition, in its own tongue, speaks of a hidden memory, a subtle recording, a spiritual ledger that cannot be erased. From the Bardo visions of Tibetan mystics, who described fields of pure awareness reflecting every deed and desire, to the Kabbalists' Book of Remembrance inscribed by celestial scribes, humankind has glimpsed this boundless remembrance. Yet, what is the purpose? To spy on destiny? To satisfy idle curiosity? To unlock forbidden secrets? The deeper teaching is always healing. The Akashic records shine a light not only on the events themselves, but upon the reasons, the sacred why, knotted beneath ordinary suffering. Here, one can see the silent wounds echoing across lifetimes, or discover the higher intention guiding present challenges, like the glimmer of a lighthouse seen through a midnight fog. Consider for a moment, what memory of your soul might be longing to surface right now, beneath the questions you live with every day? Is destiny a blueprint sealed long ago, or a living story, rewritten on the breath of every choice? Step deeper into the fragrance of the unknown. The Akashic records are not bound to one culture, nor imprisoned in the ruins of distant epochs. Instead, they glimmer on the threshold of every spiritual quest, a torch illuminating the grand weave that binds every being, every instant, every longing. In Sanskrit cosmology, Akasha is spoken of with awe, as the most subtle, primal source. The great Upanishads whisper of a field vibrating beyond sense, a living tapestry where the deeds and desires of every creature send their echoes. The ancient Egyptians saw the Hall of Ma'at, where truth itself weighed a soul. In each vision, the pattern repeats, an unfathomable remembrance holding every secret, but also every hope. Through the ages, philosophers and physicists alike have found themselves circling this central flame. Some have glimpsed a universal field, an unbroken ocean of information pulsing through the very heart of reality. Systems theorist Ervin Laszlo revived an ancient intuition for a new era, proposing the Akasha is more than metaphor, a quantum field storing every intention, thought, and life. In this view, the Akashic records are not a myth, but an unseen architecture of the universe, one that bridges mind and matter, spirit and science. In other words, the Akashic records do not merely dwell in temples or visions, but in the finest vibrations, the subtlest energies. Science itself, ever skeptical, now admits the idea that information is never lost. Every spark remains, embedded in the very lattice of time and space. Could every heartbeat, every decision, every regret, and every silent realization be imprinted on an invisible veil, waiting to be reawakened and healed? Imagine for a moment, what would it mean to encounter your own soul's library? Would you be overwhelmed by the weight of memory, or would a deeper compassion rise? An understanding that suffering and joy are woven from the same tapestry. Perhaps what you would find is not accusation, but profound acceptance. The embrace of a field where nothing is banished, nothing is unworthy of remembrance. The Akashic records are a living, breathing sanctuary. They are not simply a cosmic storage bin or an unfathomable sealing of fate. Rather, they are dynamic, ever unfolding, matching the frequency and readiness of each seeker. When you approach humbly, your senses shift. A warmth in the heart, a tingling at the crown, a gentle buzz in the silence between thoughts. Some describe entering vast halls of light, lined with books that glow and hum, their pages as fluid as water and as radiant as fire. For others, no library appears, only the rush of emotion, a flood of insight, a sudden certainty that bypasses logic. These experiences do not come through force or idle command. They come by attunement, by resting within the stillness where the skin of the world grows thin. The Akashic field adapts itself, a mirror reflecting the questions of the heart, answering in symbols, visions, even in the softest nudges of intuition. Here, the records reveal themselves as a mentor, a gentle guide away from regret and illusion toward meaning and wholeness. To access the Akashic records is not to trespass into fate, but to step into a subtle conversation with the source. Wise traditions urge respect, humility, and sacred intention. Record keepers, guardians described by many faiths, stand watchful, ensuring knowledge is given only when it furthers healing and growth. It is not for the prideful or the reckless, but for those willing to face both their own darkness and their potential with equal reverence. The path is not without challenge. Many seekers find their first attempts meet only with silence or visions colored by ego's turbulence. Emotional wounds may arise. Old illusions may crumble at the threshold. The Akashic records demand sincerity, a willingness to let go of old stories and to claim a truth untainted by self-deception. Patience and purity of intention become the true keys, not technique, nor inherited ritual. Is the Akashic journey merely escapism, a way to avoid the pains and struggles of the present? Or is it a call to a greater responsibility, to live in alignment with the deepest patterns written for your soul alone? The answer depends on how you approach the records, as a playground for the mind or a temple for profound remembrance. As the veils continue to thin, the mysteries of the Akashic records deepen, calling each soul to the shore of its own remembrance. The air here seems charged with revelation. Within the Akashic field, time does not march in a straight line. It curves, folds, and interlaces, so that a question whispered in the present may summon answers from centuries past, or even futures not yet set into stone. The seeker becomes both historian and prophet, archaeologist and dreamer, gazing into a pool where memory, desire, and destiny swirl together like colors in water. Throughout the world, countless accounts attest to the transformative power of these records. A healer sits in silent meditation, seeking clarity on a pattern of anger that has haunted a family line for generations. In stillness, she senses the watchful presence of the record keepers, and a vision springs forth. A memory from an ancient village where betrayal once sowed the first seeds of resentment. The details are sharp. The earthy scent of thatched roofs, the resonance of sorrow in the wind, a child's silent vow echoing through centuries. Forgiveness, long withheld, begins to flow. The family, once bound by shadow, feels the first stirrings of release. Or consider the artist who, beset by creative blocks, steps into a luminous trance and finds himself standing before a grand archive not built by human hands. The shelves pulse with living light. Melodies swirl in the air. Each song, each image, is a memory not only of his own soul, but of artists from distant lands and forgotten eras, their dreams imprinted in the universal ether. He understands. His longing to create is not his alone, but part of a greater symphony seeking expression. The fear of inadequacy melts away, replaced by awe for the sacred web of inspiration flowing through all life. Not every journey to the Akashic records is dramatic. Some seekers report only the gentlest of impressions, a subtle shift in perception, a quiet certainty that the next step on their path is aligned. The divine wisdom threads itself into the practical, guiding them in moments that appear, from the outside, entirely ordinary. These are some of the most precious gifts the records bestow. Not spectacle, but the grace to live with intention, to heal wounds old and new, and to carry forward the lessons of lifetimes with humility. The record's wisdom is accessible, yet not to be taken lightly. Their healing is not automatic. The seeker is often required to face unhealed traumas, to acknowledge karmic debts, and to forgive both self and others on a scale rarely attempted in ordinary consciousness. This is not punishment, but a sacred purification. The light of the records reveals neither only virtue nor only sin, but the whole story, in a tapestry where every thread is valued. Guilt is released not in denial, but in understanding. Redemption is not granted by outside authority, but grows from deep within. There are stories of souls who consult the records not for themselves, but for the healing of others. A hospice nurse, seeking solace for her patients, is granted visions of their soul contracts, the journeys they have traveled before this lifetime, and the purposes, sometimes arduous, sometimes luminous, that led them to this point of transition. Transient anxieties dissolve. In their place rises a peace that surpasses logic, compassion flowing like cool water through the last moments of life. The Akashic records, when accessed with humility and love, reveal that suffering is not random, that obstacles often conceal hidden teachers, and that every soul story is far more intricate and grand than surface appearances could ever reveal. Patterns of addiction, fear, and abandonment are exposed not as curses, but as invitations to greater self-knowing and healing. The seeker learns to trust that even wounds which echo across multiple lives carry the seeds of wisdom, strength, and eventual liberation. Many wonder, is accessing the records an exclusive gift, reserved only for highly trained mystics or those born with rare talents? The traditions insist otherwise. The Akashic records are available to all who cultivate sincere intention, pure motive, and patience. Some develop their sensibility through years of meditation, prayer, or spiritual discipline. Others find that a sudden crisis, a yearning too strong to ignore, becomes the gate through which the records are revealed. The differences in access do not reflect favoritism, but soul readiness. Sometimes the records stand silent, the door remaining closed until inner purification has occurred, or the seeker's question becomes worthy and true. Even frustration along the way carries its hidden blessings, fostering humility and deepening the desire for authentic knowledge. This leads to a deeper inquiry. What does it mean to truly integrate what is discovered in the records? Insight alone cannot transform a life. The soul must turn realization into action, embodying compassion, forgiveness, and courage in the drama of daily existence. Those who return from the Akashic realm with wisdom, yet fail to apply it, remain trapped in old patterns. The records become not an escape or a crutch, but a sacred challenge to live as a co-author of destiny, not merely a victim of fate. Which do you believe is more challenging? Discovering a past wound, or finding the courage to heal it in this life? Share which part of the soul's journey intrigues you most. Memories long buried, or visions of potential awaiting birth. Block 4. The atmosphere grows thicker as we move onward, like stepping deeper into a candle-lit study, where each shadow holds another secret. Now, curiosity turns toward the question of how the Akashic records shape the events of this world, and what role they play in the evolution of not just one soul, but humanity as a whole. The idea that every action, word, and intention is recorded in a cosmic field brings a sobering responsibility. If every moment is seeded into the memory of existence, then every choice is woven into a tapestry that affects more than just the individual. Imagine the ripples extending outward, an act of compassion reaching through the delicate web, soothing wounds far beyond what the mind can perceive. Conversely, an act born of anger or prejudice may echo as a lesson for future selves or generations yet to come. Here, the Akashic records are not distant chronicles. They are active participants, shaping reality from within. Philosophers, sages, and modern physicists alike are drawn to this concept. Holographic theory suggests that every fragment of the universe contains the pattern of the whole, just as every cell contains the code for the entire organism. Could it be that every human heart holds, at a subtle level, the memory of all that has ever been and all that will be? Does each person, knowingly or not, participate in the writing of this universal narrative? If so, then perhaps the greatest gift of the Akashic records is not just personal healing, but the awakening of a collective consciousness, a unity that transcends time, culture, and creed. Ancient teachers hinted at this, a day when humanity would remember its true origin, reclaiming the wisdom that was always its birthright. The Akashic records signal the return to that sacred memory, not as nostalgia, but as the foundation for a new kind of reality. This collective access is neither inevitable nor automatic. It must be chosen, cultivated, and guarded by each generation. The transition is gradual, felt in subtle shifts, increased empathy, greater intuition, unexplained creativity blossoming in unlikely places. Sometimes, the Akashic influence surfaces in dreams, archetypes rising from the depths. At other times, in sudden knowing, a sense that one's path, however solitary, is part of a much larger unfolding. Technology, paradoxically, may serve this awakening. As humanity's web connects minds and stories from every corner of Earth, a global tapestry of memory is being spun in real time. Some believe that the digital age, for all its noise and confusion, mirrors the dynamics of the Akashic field, an interconnectedness that both reveals and challenges the soul's journey. No tradition, no spiritual stance is left untouched. The Jewish Kabbalists speak of the Book of Remembrance, the Sefer HaZikaron, containing the lessons and deeds of souls. In Tibetan lore, the Bardo visions carry memories across incarnations. Early Christian mystics perceived the Book of Life, recording the names and faithfulness of the righteous. Each tradition offers its own lens, its own metaphor, yet always points to the same invisible river, carrying the memories of all stories, all tears, all prayers. What unites these threads is a single truth. The story is never finished. The records are never truly closed. Every soul, every action, every heartbeat weaves another golden thread into an endless pattern. The humility this perspective demands is immense. To realize you are both singular and universal, both author and character, is to awaken from fragmentation and step into a realization of sacred unity. At times, questions arise. If all is recorded, is there still free will? Are we prisoners of destiny, or dancers upon a stage whose steps have been choreographed eons ago? The Akashic tradition answers with paradox. The script is alive, yes, but the ink is wet. Choice and fate are entwined, shaping and reshaping one another in each lived moment. And so the records are not rigid laws, but living invitations. The soul consults its memory, not to escape accountability, but to discover a deeper level of authorship. Patterns from the past cast their influence, but awareness brings the power to change, to forgive, to choose again, to heal at the root. Each insight, every act of conscious intention, rewrites not only your personal record, but the collective story. In the hush of the mystery, consider what it truly means to access the Akashic records. For many, curiosity is the first key, a yearning not just for information, but for transformation. Yet, the records are neither a fortune-teller's deck nor a mechanical database to be manipulated at will. Those who approach seeking shortcuts, certainty, or validation for the ego often find only silence or confusion. The true nature of the records demands reverence, discipline, and an openness to the unknown. The process of entering the Akashic field varies as widely as the souls who seek it. Some find the gateway through meditation, letting thoughts drift until only the pulse of the heart remains. Others use prayer, sacred sound, or even breath itself, focusing their awareness until the boundary between self and universe dissolves. Ritual and intention matter, yet the most important ingredient is sincerity, a willingness to accept what is revealed, however unexpected or uncomfortable it may be. Guardians, sometimes known as record keepers, are described in many traditions as subtle presences, ensuring that access is granted only when it serves a higher good. They are not gatekeepers of privilege, but stewards of sacred truth, attuned to the readiness of each seeker's spirit. When doubt or distraction clouds your question, the records may seem inaccessible, protecting you from information that could distort rather than heal. The experiences reported by those who venture successfully into the Akashic realm are as varied as dreams themselves. One may step into a vast chamber, its air thick with the fragrance of cedar and old parchment, awash with golden light. There, books appear, some sealed, some opening with a breath. Each book, each page, is alive, unfolding visions and sensations that defy linear chronology. For another, the experience is silent, wordless, a direct impression impressed upon the soul, like waking from a dream with a certainty that cannot be explained. Patterns emerge among pilgrims of the records. Many return with a piercing understanding of their soul's purpose, or with clarity regarding wounds that have shaped their lives. There are stories of long-standing illnesses easing after a visit to the records, emotional blockages dissolving as forgotten vows, lost dreams, or burdens from past existences finally come into view. The wisdom gained is rarely prescriptive, and more often takes the subtle form of insight, a nudge, or a permission to forgive oneself at last. Yet, with such gifts come responsibilities and temptations. Some may become entranced, seeking in the records constant reassurance or a shortcut past the slow unfolding of earthly lessons. When knowledge is pursued without humility, or when the urge to escape replaces the willingness to grow, the records close their depths, reflecting back only the noise of restless desire. True initiates use these glimpses not as substitutes for living, but as a compass, a guide toward deeper authenticity and courageous action. They return renewed, carrying a sense of sacred duty, for what is understood in the records must be lived and embodied here and now. The greatest teaching, say those who have traveled these inner corridors, is not detachment, but engagement. The willingness to comfort others, to serve, to act as a midwife for the awakening of humanity. Importantly, not every visit to the Akashic field brings grand revelation. Some may receive gentle encouragement or subtle reassurance that their small daily acts matter, that their unseen kindness, patience, or creativity ripple outward, joining the symphony of remembered life. In this, the records become a wellspring for collective empathy and hope. Beyond individual healing and insight, the teachings of the Akashic records point to a broader horizon, the evolution of consciousness across the world. As humanity stands poised on the edge of vast change, the presence of the Akashic field grows ever more significant. In an era marked by division, uncertainty, and rapid innovation, Spiritual wisdom rooted in ancient memory may offer a compass more vital than ever before. Imagine a world where leaders, educators, and healers consult not just statistics and traditions, but the deep river of the Akashic field for guidance. Imagine education systems that honor the unique journey of every soul, recognizing talents and challenges carried across incarnations and gifting children not just knowledge, but the keys to their own remembrance. Imagine healing practices that reach beyond physical symptoms, embracing karmic patterns and ancestral echoes for true, lasting transformation. The Akashic field also calls humanity to a new relationship with the earth itself. The rocks, rivers, forests, and shifting winds each contain their own memory, a subtle record of joy, trauma, and untold potential. Indigenous wisdom has long honored this connection, and as modern science explores quantum fields and the intelligence of living systems, a meeting of minds begins. The Akashic records invite us to become stewards, not conquerors, listening deeply, repairing our bond with nature, and remembering our role as caretakers in a living cosmos. Technology, too, walks hand in hand with ancient knowledge. As scientific frontiers explore holography, quantum entanglement, and the subtle interplay of consciousness, the boundary between mysticism and materialism dissolves further. What was once dismissed as poetic now shimmers on the edge of theoretical possibility, a reminder that the future may reveal the Akashic field as the deepest law of reality, not mere metaphor. Yet within this grand unfolding, the most profound revolution is interior. Every soul who accesses the records, who unearths a forgotten strength or heals an ancient wound, participates in the dawn of a new humanity. The lesson is not to become lost in the past or paralyzed by visions of the future, but to gather wisdom and return with both feet on the ground, living in service, in truth, and in ever-widening circles of compassion. What if the next chapter of human evolution is not merely technological, but spiritual? What if every person who awakens to the Akashic field becomes a node of healing, a luminous thread in the vast tapestry of existence? In this vision, each act of forgiveness, each moment of loving intent, and every courageous choice ripples outward, weaving a future drawn from wisdom and unity. When you stand still in the hush of dusk, do you sense the tug of invisible stories, inviting you into a larger belonging? In quiet moments, the soul remembers. The light flickers, and through the veil, you may almost hear it. The murmur of your journey, the laughter and tears that have shaped you, the call to awaken and participate more fully in the living memory of all that is. Share in the comments below which teaching from this journey into the Akashic field most resonated with your heart. What ancient or future lesson are you ready to embrace? The Akashic records are not a distant myth. They are the eternal breath within you, the silent companion at every turning, the living memory waiting to be rediscovered in the hush between heartbeats. Your story is inscribed there, luminous and unfinished, inviting you to walk forward with courage and wonder. Let this journey continue, through the secrets of the soul, across the mysteries of time, and into the next chapters still to be revealed. Explore the other mysteries unveiled in our library of videos, and share this voyage with those who seek deeper truth. Your presence is part of this unfolding tapestry. Continue the journey, comment your own insights, and let us all awaken together.